And you're welcome back. Between 2012 and 2015, the country experienced its worst power crisis in decades. Not only did this residential users suffer the persistent heat at night and the inability of school children to study at night, businesses were also at the mercy of the outages, with productivity dropping by some 10%. Well, those days are or might be coming back again. And this time, if maybe not worse, unless steps are taken immediately to renegotiate for power extensions or some negotiations with plants or to build new ones. This warning is coming from the Deputy Energy Minister, Andrew Ejapa-Mensah, who has confirmed that the Electricity Company of Ghana has been tasked to renegotiate contracts with independent power producers whose contracts nearing expirations, but under a new regime that discourages the take-or-pay arrangements. We'll hear from him shortly. But first, though, the World Bank Country Director, Pierre Laporte, has been speaking about these contracts and says that they are just too expensive for the country.
Our projects that we bring are very long-term concessional lending, okay? And for instance, Ghana, as a low-middle-income country, borrows at terms that are mostly, actually they are concessional, okay, over 35% grant element, long-term 35, 40 years. We have a few windows now that are less concessional, but this is at the discretion of governments. But in the overall scheme of things, we don't do lending that gets country in trouble. Mm-hmm. What gets countries in trouble is when sometimes short-term lending, like high domestic lending that happen in Ghana, or some of the bonds sometimes are not so cheap. And I must say that, yes, there was a World Bank guarantee.
And that's what government to go out and borrow.
We did in that time. No, this is not put you. This is one of a small drop of water in the big bucket, right? So yes, with hindsight, when we look at it, we feel that maybe it's not something that we should have done in the way we did. But at the time, it was the only way to allow. Without that, Ghana could not access resources. But it's a lesson that we've learned. It's first to say that Ghana, World Bank, will honor its commitment and pay off the guarantee, which we've already done.
You've done already?
We've done already.
For the Eurobonds?
Yeah, we've settled. As the coupons will come, we will pay. We've already, in writing, the board has approved for us to fully pay it's $400 million guarantee out of a $1 billion bond. And then Ghana will have to pay back over time, and we've offered some terms that we feel are reasonable for both sides for Ghana to repay. Other than that, I cannot say that World Bank borrowing has got Ghana anywhere.
The Deputy Minister for Energy, Andrew Ejapa-Mensah, has been speaking to Joy News today, indicating that the country is heading for another power crisis.
Now, this is the big picture. About half of Ghana's capacity to generate power is provided by independent power producers. Many of the deals we've signed with these producers are what we call take or pay. What does that mean? It means that as long as the power producer's equipment is there and is available and ready and working, whether we take power from them or not, we pay them. Currently, on average, we're spending around about $15-16 million a month on each of them, whether or not we take power from these producers. That's the situation. And the bill has been racking up. Our sources in the current ongoing negotiations between ECG and IPPs tells us that the bill is almost at $2 billion. Please think about that. $2 billion. We've gone begging for $3 billion from the IMF. So we don't have that money, but we owe it. And they have given government an ultimatum. By the end of this month, if they don't pay 20% of that outstanding bill, they'll switch off. That's half of our capacity. Will switch off. We certainly don't want that to happen. So our conversation today is to figure out how to avoid that. What's the situation? How did we get here? And how are we getting out of it? All right? Churchill.
Well, so could we have Andrew Japamesa here, who's the Deputy Energy Minister. Honorable Mesa, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Great. So I know you have the Energy Sector Recovery Program, okay, where you promised us from 2019 to 2023, your target was to put the power sector in a financial viability status. What's happened? Why are we here today having this conversation?
Well, let me say good morning to our cherished listeners and, of course, those who are watching us on your social media platforms, and my colleague John and my senior brother Mr. Awotwe. Obviously, the ESRP program was a 30-item program that needed to be implemented between 2018 and 2023. Failing which a business as usual, not doing anything situation would have yielded a debt of about 12.6 billion US dollars. Yes. And so the interventions that were introduced was intended to significantly reduce that business as usual position to about 5.2 billion. As we speak, I know that we are in the region of about 6.1, 6.2. What it means is that the ESRP implementation has significantly impacted the outcome or the outlook that we're looking at to the level where we are today. Some of the 30-item program has been completed, some are in progress, and so that's where we are, and we are actually in the process of reviewing the ESRP document consistent with the IMF program so that the ESRP can be extended to 2026 to try and bring some sanity within the energy sector space. So yes, we are on course. We haven't achieved all the targets yet, but significantly you can see that the ESRP program, the introduction of the cash waterfall mechanism, natural gas clearinghouse, and several other initiatives that is outlined in the document, some on the power sector, some on the gas front, and also some regulatory, including the full cost recovery and several other items, have significantly impacted the position.
Well, the opposition National Democratic Congress is meanwhile fighting back on these claims, accusing the World Bank country rep, Pierre Laporte, of doing a poor job. The Member of Parliament for Pro East in the Bono East region, Dr. Kwabena, of course, then Power Minister, and has been challenging these claims. But are the IPPs ready for a renegotiation of the take-or-pay situation? Joining us now for more is Eliklim Afetokbo, his Chief Executive Officer of the Independent Power Producers. Thank you, sir, for your time. I'm just wondering, listening to the Deputy Minister now, would you say that your stance has changed as IPPs on the appeal that you made to government some time ago about the outstanding payments to be settled immediately? Or you still want some more time, at least for government to settle your debts?
Good afternoon to you and the listeners. In the first place, let me state that our conditions or severity of our situation is something that cannot be negotiated. We have done everything possible to manage the situation, but it has gone beyond our control. So really nothing has changed. Our ultimatum to government, that is the June 30th, is still standing. We cannot overstretch ourselves. We cannot stretch ourselves beyond June 30th.
Interesting. And I just want to pick up on the statement you made earlier when you came out with the initial announcement on this. You indicated that, quote, regrettably, we must stress that unless we receive the payments, production of power cannot be guaranteed, unquote. What's that supposed to mean? That you will shut down your plants? Is that basically what you're indicating?
Exactly so. We cannot guarantee, that is to say that you cannot run an empty engine. So if the cash flow is not available, it's practically impossible for us to operate the power plants.
But how bad is your situation really? And I'm just wondering what the alternatives are. For now, it's about government providing you with the cash. But if the cash is not available and government guarantees other factors, i.e. the terms for your loans and others, would that go a long way in at least averting this looming crisis that we're looking at?
Now, let me come in this way on the impacts. You know very well that we are private investors operating on lenders' funds or borrowed funds. Government has that luxury of privilege to go to its lenders and plead for mercy or plead for debt forgiveness. But for us as IPPs, we do not have that privilege. We cannot tell our lenders or creditors any story. That is the challenging situation we find ourselves in. So I would say government really need to do something to avert this possible crisis.
Okay, let's look at it this way. Government is constrained in terms of the financial requirements. You know that we're running the austerity plan with the International Monetary Fund, and then, of course, there are constraints in that regard. Are you mindful of all of this?
We are very mindful of it, but you know, this is purely a situation that could be avoided. You know, the cash waterfall was set up to provide some level of liquidity in the sector, but I can tell you for a year plus, we do not know as IPPs or stakeholders what happens to the cash waterfall. We don't know how much comes in, we don't know how much is shared. The revenue that comes in as something that you will not imagine. So we don't really know. We set up institutions, at the end of the day collapse it ourselves, then turn around to create stories that do not help the situation.
Okay, but then you've also been accused by experts of taking advantage of the take-or-pay situation. Some experts claiming that, of course, you make significant profits whenever you produce power that's not being used, for instance. You still get paid for it. So you can make up for the profits that you've made over the period. How about that?
I disagree with that assertion. It's purely lack of understanding or lack of knowledge about how it works. You know, when you take any power purchase agreement, which is usually between, let me say, a distribution utility and an IPP, basically we are talking about sharing of risks. The seller has its own risk to protect. The buyer also has its own risk to protect or mitigate. That is exactly what happens in the power purchase agreement. The take-or-pay contract, as you mentioned, is not a bad contract. What it means is that if I'm available, I have contracted loans to build the power plant for you, based on your own demand plan. Based on your own demand plan, based on which I provide the capacity that you require. So if I am available and you are not ready to take it, you must compensate me so that I will be able to generate the required cash flow and pay my lenders when it becomes due. The same way, when the off-taker ECG is available to receive power from me and I am not able to generate, ECG has the right, the risk mitigation measure, to surcharge me or charge me for not being able to deliver that power. That is how it works. It's just unfortunate that at this point in time it is in my favor. It doesn't mean that it is against the off-taker.
Yeah, but how does that make business sense? Apologies for using that word. When, of course, you are paying for power or energy we haven't used. That's the average concern.
Before you procure any generation capacity, for instance, in our country, we have Energy Commission that does the demand plan in collaboration with ECG. Meaning they know what they need. They foresee the demand, the future demand, and for that matter, come out with the capacity that can be contracted. That is why you cannot just get up to say that I need 500 megawatts, I need 200 megawatts. Is there the demand for it? Is there the market for it? If you procure more than what you require, you will end up paying for what you have not used. That is the situation we are finding ourselves. But I am very sure ECG and EC has done a good job by doing a demand plan. Is that maybe our system are not able to put the energy that is generated to good use. We have institutions in the country right now that do not have access to the power requirement. A case in point is a B5 company that requires about over 100 megawatts of power, but getting less than 10% of that requirement. What are we doing to make good use of the energy?
Okay, so you mean to say that the demand is still as high as we speak? It's not the case this is about prioritization on the part of ECG and others within the supply chain. But how about the concerns owing to the Ghanaian taxpayer? The fact that we're pumping money into places that we do not necessarily need.
Well, what you said is right. Like I said, we need to exert more pressure on the one that is supposed to make available the generated power to those who are in need of it. Otherwise, the taxpayers' money, as you said, is going to pay for what they said, how do you call it? What they call free money to the IPPs.
So you mean to say this may be the fault of ECG instead?
I can confirm that they can do more.
How so? Because from the ministerial perspective, the belief is that some sort of auditing should take place. And that's in line with the conditionalities that we're running with the International Monetary Fund for possibly re-looking to some of these take-or-pay arrangements. Are you open to that?
Oh, we are open to any kind of audit. I can tell you that these things have happened time and again. Auditing of our invoices, let me tell you, it's just a strategy to buy time, but all the same, they have every right to do so. But the issue is that the consequences of any further delay cannot be averted if that is a strategy to delay payment to us.
Oh, you feel this is part of the strategy to delay payment, and that your 30th June deadline may not be met? You feel that's what government is doing?
Exactly.
But it's contained in the IMF documentation, isn't it, that all of these agreements do not necessarily bring some sort of value for money, a reason for which government may have to carry out this exercise. Why link that to a deliberate plan by government to not to pay the funds?
I don't really see the justification for that. Even before the IMF came out with this approval to release the funds to government, we have had several meetings with the IMF team to the extent that even they themselves said that government is not in a position to produce even one single figure as the total indebtedness to the sector. It's also interesting to know that for us as IPP, we have regular reconciliation with our partner ECG. So our books are in good position, leaving no doubt.
The last meeting with the finance minister, what were the terms in terms of what you concluded on, the timelines of the payment, and how many of your members are due in terms of the quantum?
All those are commercial issues or private issues that I wouldn't like to talk about.
Yeah, but you can speak to the fact that indeed you met the finance minister. There were some agreements.
We had an engagement with the finance ministry.
That's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm asking about the timelines that we're giving, the firm assurances, and this whole issue about a possible audit come up.
Like I said, there are private commercial issues that varies with individual IPPs. I wouldn't like to comment on that.
But collectively speaking, you agree that some auditing has to take place, which will then allow government to meet the deadline. That's why I'm asking if you got the firm assurance. At least you're not disclosing which of the organizations, but did you get that clear sense of timeline from the minister and an assurance that the payments will be made by the 30th of June?
Honestly, we didn't get any clearance on that.
Okay, but then as we move on going into the future, you just have a couple of days to go, about 25 roughly. If the payments are not made available, and first of all, update us on the figures. Once you update us on the figures, if the payments are not made available, what then is likely to happen?
I have indicated from the beginning that we have overstretched ourselves. What we are able to do is what can carry us to the end of June and cannot go beyond. So let me say the position stands there is nothing we could do about it. We have cases in the past whereby anytime we are pressed with time, we approach government in this manner. Government will come in and make some small payment to us. Then we'll go back and say that, oh, let's keep the faith. But I think this case, we have serious cases in hand. Most of our IPPs have defaulted in their loan repayment, their creditors here and there. Pursuing them, the kind of facilities we have with these private lenders, if it is about 1 month to the time, you will start receiving reminders that failure to pay your loan or your loan on due dates, these are the penal clauses for what we have signed for, which we do not have any option. And most of us have defaulted. And this is the case, the situation we found ourselves in.
Well, what would you say to any Ghanaian, an average Ghanaian out there who says, okay, if our powers go out or if there's blackout, we blame the IPPs for it?
This is not something that we expect to happen, but let me say it's a communal labor. Let everyone join hands to impress on government to make the monies available to us to keep our lights on.
Okay, that's a clear enough message. Eliquim Afetogo, thank you for spending some time with us here.
Thank you very much.
On the Pulse. Grateful. You're watching the Pulse on the Joy News channel. When we get back, we'll bring you a number of stories, including what's happening to oil production. There's a likelihood that with the cuts in oil production, it may impact the Ghanaian economy. We'll talk about that shortly. But we can also hear from, of course, the former energy minister or Minister for Power, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, who is challenging the World Bank country director.
We brought in the Amere power plant, as you'll recall, as an emergency power plant. The emergency power Amere plant had a capital recovery cost of $0.055 per kilowatt hour for year 1 to 5. And then it had a capital recovery price of $0 from year 6 to year 20. Therefore, for its 20-year lifespan, minimum lifespan, the levelized capital recovery was $0.2377. For comparison, we would take the Sonon Asogli power plant phase 1, which we call SAP 1. The capital recovery was initially 0.0523, negotiated in 2007. This was later renegotiated down to 0.0395 when the phase 2 and 3 were being added during the John Mahama regime, during the period of emergency. If we take the TICO, Takrady International Company, the tariff or the capital recovery there was 0.0365 in 2007. Jacobson, which is one of the plants, one of the IPPs, not emergency. The IPPs brought in 2014. The capital recovery was 0.03788, again lower than Sono Asogli phase 1, and this was brought in 2014. TT2PP, which is Tema Plant 2 power plant owned by VRA, has a capital recovery of 0.0309. These are higher than for the average. It is important to raise these issues because the World Bank Group country director created the impression that all the power purchase agreements signed under the John Mahama regime were higher, expensive, and in his way contributed towards the challenges of the power sector today. I wish the country director had gone a bit back or gotten his researchers to look at the holistic picture. The country director also talked about take-or-pay agreements that the Mahama government contracted a number of take-or-pay agreements. It is interesting that since the Mahama government left office at the end of 2016, every single power purchase agreement, or indeed fuel purchase agreement, the Tema LNG project, has had a take-or-pay component. Take-or-pay is a reality in our situation because of confidence. A 330 megawatt combined cycle plant on the average will cost about $500 million in our sub-region. Is the country director of World Bank saying that the IFC, International Finance Corporation, which is an arm of the World Bank, are they saying they will fund a project worth $500 million and not demand a guarantee or an offtake agreement? In developing country scenarios, especially in our part of the world with instability, no investor is going to put $500 million in a plant in your country and say pay only when you take the power. Other than that, we must always remember that for power plants and for normal international business projects, project finance is 30% equity, 70% loan. Debt. That is the normal ratio, 30 equity, 70 debt. How are you going to service the debt if revenue will come in only when there is offtake of power? And that is why there is a capital recovery or capacity charge. When the plant does not run and the plant is not faulty, there are conditions set up in each contract. Once the plant is available and it's not running, you are not taking the full cost. If it's not running, it's not consuming fuel. Fuel is the biggest single cost in running a plant. You only take your capital recovery, which enables you service the facility. And that is why a new AXA agreement has been signed by this government. They signed an interim one when the AXA 5-year contract lapsed. The interim one had a take-or-pay. The new one for the AXA plant in Kumasi has take-or-pay. The new PPA for the AXA plant in Tema has take-or-pay. The Tema LNG project is a take-or-pay 20-year project contracted by this government. It is not for nothing, because investors will want to be assured that there is going to be a revenue flow, that their investment will not lie idle with no revenue. No project can get to financial closure without the funders being sure that there will be revenue flow to service the facility. And so I am quite surprised that the country director of the World Bank will make such aspersions without examining the reality. What's
the reality? I want to bring in now Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, who's an energy policy strategies. Thank you for spending some time with us. So, a divided opinion on this matter. Some say take-or-pay is helpful. Others believe it's part of the problems that we face now. But looking at the landscape, our capacity, demand, and where we are now in terms of our energy needs, would you say that the take-or-pay is indeed the way to go, Doc?
Yeah, thank you very much, Blessed, and good afternoon to you and your cherished viewers. It's just unfortunate that I have to enter into this conversation when it's taking political dimension. It's whenever it takes such a dimension, it vitiates right judgment. However, we still have to talk about it. If you look at what brought about this kind of agreement in the first place, you see, if you don't have alternative, Blessed, and then you are pressed, nobody can tell you that. Nobody can tell me that. Take or pay is better than take and pay. Take and pay will always give you strategic advantage, But like I listened to the minister quite well, and he's right in some areas, in a way that there are some clauses, there are some areas where take and pay or take or pay, it could be used, especially when the supply is just constrained. And sometimes even the requester, the one who is the off-taker, sometimes will request that I need take or pay because I want to secure, the product, or I want to secure the commodity. So in that instances, take and pay or take or pay is just what is okay. And that one has to be an agreement between the buyer and then the seller. And I mentioned again that usually the buyer sometimes will even ask for it because he wants security of the product. But what was our situation? Our situation was that, we were just pressed. If you look at the time that it happened.
That was the reality at the time when we're facing all of the energy crisis. But for how long will this persist? That's the question. Of course, former power minister indicating there that even the new crisis. But for how long will this persist? That's the question. Of course, former power minister indicating there that even the new